this AI note-taking company that captures your life and creates summaries and like meeting notes for you. So I got to be like a founding member there, really get into the startup space in the Bay Area. Hackathons. So one hackathon I did was last year in February at CNU, JacHacks. That was actually my first hackathon. And yeah, like we basically built an AI video tool to create UGC content. So I personally am also very involved in marketing and creating content on social media. And our idea was to create this tool which could help brands or content creators, even startups, to like generate content on demand and kind of get awareness around their brands, right? So that was our idea. We didn't really work on it after the hackathon, but back in June we came back together in SF and like we started building on it. So we ended up creating the product at a more full-fledged state, and sold it to some startups. Sold it to some startups, and yeah, we applied to YC for the fall 25 batch, and we got in. But there's like a lot of things which happen in between, right? So I'm just gonna like break down my experiences, my process, and like what all of you could do to get in, or like increase the chances, right? And like maybe make your startup success. So starting with the process of applying, there's obviously an application form on the website, right, that you can fill out. It's pretty concise, and like the whole goal is for you to be very authentic and like brief. So don't write paragraphs, don't do bullshit stuff. Don't write like ChatGPT essays or whatever. It's not like college applications. It's really just you talking about what you know about your customer, what you know about your audience, and where do you think this is going to go? Obviously, they want to see a very big TAM. They like think about it from a VC perspective. They want it to be a $1 billion industry, right? Like, yeah, only then will they benefit from it. So, yeah, you should like convey how you're starting with a wedge. So for us, we were doing like AI video UGC, right, which is like a big market, but we were starting with startups who wanted to so consumer startups who wanted to get customers, and social media is one way where they do it, right? Because consumer ads are like, you need to have social media presence. So that was our initial ICP, and yeah, we kind of laid down on that. We figured out that the problem we figured out was they're not willing to pay much, and they're very churnable, right? Because if they see, oh, well, video is not going viral, they're gonna probably like not pay you again. And AI video, at least back then, was kind of difficult. It wasn't as good as now. And it's hard to predict virality. Like even good content creators like can't repeat it so much unless you build like a following and stuff, right? So I think people still value the human aspect of UGC, and hence we pivoted from that to video editing. So for video editing, what we did is we started looking at wedding videographers and like wedding video companies that have 3+ hours of footage, right, from a wedding. And they have to create these highlight reels, which are like five-minute videos, right? And it's difficult because you have to take the important moments, such as the bride and groom kissing or the vows and all that stuff. And the editor literally spends like a couple of days doing this. So the turnaround time, at least in the US, was around 2 weeks. So it's bad for the customer, like the person who's getting married. They're probably like not happy with it. And the costs are also pretty high. They could charge 5 to 6K per wedding. And obviously there's like videography costs, but like still, the editing time is also taken into account. So we started selling to like these companies, and that's what we applied to YC with. So for YC, we had 3 interviews. The first interview was like with the UGC kind of thing, but not AI generated content. The user brings the content and we edit it to make it viral. But we realized it's hard. So we then pivoted to like long form content to short form content. And we pivoted between the first and second interview. So like, usually you only have one interview. The format is 10 minutes. They ask you like very, very basic questions actually. But the way you answer is what decides the outcome, right? So I guess like, what are you building? Why are you the right fit for this idea, right? I think founder market fit is very, very important. And you may see many like YC companies, either doing very like common ideas, and it may seem to be that it doesn't have a moat, but I think the moat is the founders themselves. And It's like, how much are you willing to give up and how much are you willing to like sacrifice and stick around for this idea as a team that will decide whether the startup is successful or not, right? So they really look for that, look for co-founder dynamics, how long have you known each other, like team, coordination. So like those are some of the things you should keep in mind. And you should not wait, like you should not think that you're too early to apply to us. Clearly we weren't that late stage. We only had a prototype and like a couple hundred in revenue. So yeah, it's like very early. It is really early, right? And we pivoted again after getting into the batch as well. So what's important is you highlighting your unique edge in the space and your unique edge as founders. And I will say there's two types of companies they invest in. The first type is founder-driven, right? We already mentioned like either you have a crack background, and like crack background is basically like FAN or whatever, or a good university, which I know is superficial, but they're getting like 20,000 applications. So like from their perspective, the fact that you are able to achieve this stuff means that they're kind of filtering out easily, right? And beyond that, what matters is like your mindset, right? Like, are you in this for the long term? And are you willing to do whatever it takes? Being scrappy and being like very quick is really helpful. So you should not be like stuck with your idea. One of the questions they asked us is, what if this doesn't work? What are you gonna do, right? So have a pivot strategy in mind, and be very open and flexible to changing your product based on the market need and not based on your like love of the product, which obviously, like, especially with first-time founders, like you tend to have a lot of love for your product and bias, and it kind of makes it difficult for you to understand the truth that maybe the market does not need this, and maybe you should move to something else. So that's one thing. The second type of companies to invest in is like traction-driven, right? So you may not be the most cracked like background, but you've shown some sort of proof, whether that's like MRR or review, or some like real signal, right? Some piracy of codes. If it's a consumer app, like a really good signal that you have a lot of users and stuff. Retention. Another thing is that consumer apps are like very rare. I think my batch had like 140 companies and only 10 of them were consumer apps. So it's not Maxi's preference, but if you really are doing something in consumer, then you better just be really good at it, right? And it's hard. Like keep in mind, the first company I worked for is a consumer app, and yeah, like it's hard. It's hard to get revenue because people only use it when it's free, right? Because there's so many available options. Like think of you as being a consumer. Would you use your product, right? So yeah, consumer is a kind of different game, but for B2B, where all the money is, yeah, and they like B2B obviously. And apart from that, after the like interview, I think throughout the batch, right? Like actually let me pull back. Okay, let's see you applied. Many people don't get interviews, right? So what should you do to get an interview? I think you should try and get referrals from current YC founders, and don't get it from random people, because when you like, for example, if someone asks me to do a recommendation on the portal, like I can see they'd ask me like, how long do you know the founder for? How do you work with them, right? And did they ask you to write this or no? Like they'll ask you, did they ask you to write this, or would you have written it even if they didn't ask you? So usually that's the option founders choose. But the point is, if you don't really know them, they'll probably say, yeah, I wrote it because he asked me to do it, and that's bad. So I would choose quality recommenders over quantity, and follow-ups, right? So if YC comes to your college, meet them, right, their office hours and stuff, try and email them. Cold emailing actually works pretty well if you're short, concise, and yeah, compelling. And then, what else was there? I'm blanking. So we talked about cold emailing, we talked about talking to IC partners, yeah, getting referrals, but really just, oh yeah, updates. So in the application portal, like you have an option to give an update of the progress your company has made. So typically, let's say you apply, after 1 week or 2 weeks, you want to try and give them an update And what they care about is how much difference is there in your product from the first time I applied to 2 weeks later. So for us, we applied initially with just this like thing where you can upload footage, it crops it up and like gives you some sort of an edited version. And then in the new version, we also built like an agent that you can ask like add music or like cut the clip at this second, right? So it was agent doing tasks on the editor itself. That was our update, and like we got an interview like basically like a few hours after our update. So clearly that did something. I would say it is somewhat of a game as well. Like obviously there's so many good companies out there, right, which don't get into IC for whatever reason. I think one of the big reasons is they are unable to like articulate their value prop to the YC partners, which is a difficult task, right? But I think your network is super important. But for most, the most important thing is having a product and a market that works. Like if your market really needs your product and you're making revenue, like no one can really stop you, right? So I think that should be your ultimate goal, and you should do whatever it takes to reach that goal. Don't try to optimize for the fact that you want to get into IC. Optimize for the fact that you want to build a great company, right? That should be the vision, and the motivation as well. And they can see that. That is why they like would not invest in you if they feel like you're just doing this for the brand name or the clout. So that's one thing. And then I'll talk a bit more about my experience being in the batch as well. So it's really like a mini college. There's like 400 people. There's like founder dinners, there's events, some cool speakers, and you meet your YC partner every other week, like bi-weekly. And yeah, you're in a Slack channel with them where you can ping them anytime. Some of these people are like really, really cool. One of them was a founder of Google Photos, who was one of our partners, and like they just have very cool stories and very cool experiences where it's really good to learn from people who have done it in the past. So I think that's really, really valuable. I think more than the money, it's the people and the community that's really strong, right? And obviously, like for college students, it helps you like get the funds to like drop out, right? Another thing I will say is there is a lot of hype around dropping out, and I feel like some people do it they think like it's cool to drop out, and they like the idea of building something, but they don't really invest time to actually work on the shit, right? So that's the problem, and I think that's a very like fine line you should draw personally, where you really want to fall in the bucket of actually building something useful, right? That's why it's so good, like build something people want. So that should be the crux of whatever you do. And it's a very simple statement, but a very hard thing to execute. But yeah, apart from that, like it's like a very insane sprint. There's like an apartment where all the YC founders live, so you get to meet a lot of cool people. It's almost like they're getting the best from all colleges and putting them in one room. Imagine what that's going to do, right? It's the best university out there. Like just think about it. I think those are my main points. I'm probably gonna open up for questions now. If anyone has any.
Yeah. So what if you don't have a company, or you just like interested in starting a startup but haven't generated any kind of a revenue or stuff, and you are like in need of a co-founder and people like that? How would you direct those people?
Yeah, I think there's two things you need to figure out before doing a startup. It's why are you doing what you're doing? Either it's like a problem you have faced personally, or you have seen deeply, right? Whether you did an internship and you got to know something very specific throughout your experience there, or you yourself are somehow a user of your product, right? So figure out that thing first. For co-founders, I think like going to events is super useful. Hackathons is very useful. Like that's where I found my team, like part of my team. So go to hackathons, go to events, go to startup events at your school. There's obviously YC Startup School as well, right? Every summer. Put yourself out there. LinkedIn is amazing. It actually changed my life. Like, LinkedIn changed my life. Yeah. If I didn't post on LinkedIn, or if I didn't like message people, I don't think I'd be here. Like I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have gotten my internship at Twin Mind. I wouldn't have called them my co-founders. Yeah, Instagram, I guess. I meant to Instagram. But anyway, like social media is insanely powerful. And you should really use it to your advantage, right? Obviously, people can doom scroll on it, but you can do other things that are useful to you. So do the useful things. What else was the question? Co-founders, yeah. Those are 2 questions, right? Anything else?
I have a question. What if you're like out of school?
What if you're?
What if you graduated and you're like out of school?
Okay. So that's not a problem. People also quit their jobs to go to startups, right? Yeah. Like, okay, I think there's a wrong impression that YC is very high school coded, or like college coded, which is true. In the past 3 years, even the partners told us like 2022 versus 2026, I think more than 50% of the batch is now like college kids. And it used to be 20%. So yeah, but obviously there's not many people who are in the workspace don't, right? It's more so like, this is a very interesting thing one of the partners told us is, big tech companies and stuff are like, they were limiting the use of AI, right? Or like kind of having some regulations. I think like Microsoft, you can only use Copilot, which is stupid because like Claude is better. So like, it's just restrictions which prevent you from even using these tools in your day-to-day work. And also engineers are, especially like higher level engineers, like older engineers, may be reluctant to using AI because they have this sense of ego, right? Like, oh, I know what to do, like, why would I use AI? And that's bad because if a very experienced engineer uses AI, they're probably 10x from your own, or actually 20x from your own. If you're a noob using AI, you're probably 10x from your own. So, like, the point is, in startups, the thinking is very different. Your goal is not, it really doesn't matter initially, like, how you're coding your thing. What matters is who are you selling to, and is it solving a problem? And you want to get to that PMF mark as soon as possible. And you should do whatever it takes. Product market fit. You know what that means? Like, I can explain it. So that's basically like when you have a group of a subset of users who like really love your product, they're paying for it, using it a lot, and you've really like cracked that, yeah, like I'm gonna lock in now, raise a lot of money, and like really nail this market share, right? That's basically, it's like after that point, it's more so growth and like scaling. But before that point, it's cracking. So you pivot, you create different products, you test what works. So that's the kind of differentiation between pre-PMF and post-PMF. Yeah, was there anything else?
Yes.
Any other question?
What if you don't go to like accounting school and you don't really?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I have seen some companies who are like not from private schools, right? Which is actually doing really well, one of the companies. And the main thing was they had a lot of revenue already, a lot of traction, network, right? If you are in a space where you are uniquely positioned to do really well, you have the network where you have some sort of unique advantage. That is your friend. Another thing I will tell you is like all these top college, like college admissions is a complete scam, and like college admissions is a complete scam, right? So like it does not mean that just because you're in a target school that you're not able to do well or not do a good company, right? That is false. What you should have is conviction in your idea, and you should be figuring things out very fast. It may be a little bit harder for you. Like I agree, right? You have some random kids building some random shit and they get it because of their brand. So for you, it's harder. You have to be more legit before getting in. And one thing I'll also tell you is all these brand kids getting in, some of them are not doing well. I might be revealing too much information, but wait, this is recorded. But hopefully not. But what I'm basically saying is that they either fail or they're like not able to like succeed even throughout the batch and even post batch because they're too early, and maybe they're treating it a bit unseriously, right? So your advantage is to be so fucking crazily obsessed and like actually care about your thing that you're gonna beat them because they have that comfort zone and you don't have that comfort zone. And that's yeah.
Yeah. It's all about that.
Yes.
Me?
Yeah. You're right.
Okay, so how much do you think the idea matters versus the co-founders themselves?
Yeah. I think co-founders matter a lot, right? So another interesting, I don't know if I don't even have a stat, but a good chunk of YC companies are going through co-founder breakups. And my my kind of like reasoning for why that's happening is, first of all, lack of knowing your co-founder. So in my opinion, co-founder is like finding a life partner, right? And this is an interesting thing I was talking to someone about. So for dating, you have that period where you're like dating someone and figuring out whether you like them or not, right? And like, whether you can like be their whatever partner, whatever, right? In startups, that time frame is very short. Like a hackathon, and you decide in a hackathon, oh yeah, this guy seems cool and I can work with him. You don't really know them, right? You haven't gone to like dates with them, basically. So, and in a startup, you're living together. So it's really a life partner if you think about it. So yeah, I think the lack of knowing your co-founder is a very big problem because it causes problems later. It doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how much funding you have, it can be bad. And when your second question was idea, right? Obviously, you need to have like an idea that is plausible. Now, what YC does is they're doing early stage investing, and obviously they help you figure out what the right idea is in the batch, right? Like if you're not able to succeed. But I would say, at least after speaking to multiple founders, the founders who get in pre-revenue and pre-idea because of their background or whatever I was mentioning, they find it more harder to like scale throughout the batch because not all of them, right? Like there's a good chunk because they don't know what they want to build yet. So I would try to actually figure out the idea as much as possible. Because two things. It gets you closer to a more successful company and it gets you closer to knowing your industry so well that whatever question YC asks you, you know your answer. And you are an expert. So you should actually be more of an expert in the space than the YC partners. That's what they want to see, right?
Can I ask a follow-up after that?
No, you can do it.
Can a strong idea in the starting stage become successful, or do they need to see traction?
What do you mean?
So like, let's say I have like a strong idea and it's like starting and it's like, okay, this is the idea. Versus like, let's say I have a startup and it's kind of, let's say I have an idea and I have, and it like probably is tested a bit more. It's like seen, is it better, how much traction is like really needed before we should like go to a private advice, for example?
So,
The traction more is like revenue.
yeah. I mean, I told you, we didn't really have revenue, right? So, there is no harm in applying. Because the fact, like, the process of filling out the YC application itself makes you understand more about your business. Because I don't know if you've seen the YC application, but they ask you some questions which really make you think, right? Like, what are you exactly doing? Why are you doing it? Who is the team? How much revenue do you have? Where is this going to go in the next few years, right? So those are hard questions, which will force you to better understand your business. I would say, like, yeah, it matters in the sense that obviously they don't want to invest in completely like just the prototype, right? Even though there has been a few cases where they do that, but they do it not because of the idea, they do it because of the founders, right? So you have to identify what bucket you fall into, right? And make a decision for yourself. Yeah, I think you were there. Sorry. Yeah.
A lot of the ideas that since I have, I'm not very like tapped into the niche or industry or know anyone in it either. But I know that I'm trying to solve like a valid problem, and I know I have a valid solution. So then, how do you go about navigating something like
So how do you know it's a valid problem?
market research?
Did you
Like,
speak
I don't
to
have people. Yeah, but I don't have people on my team that are specifically.
But did you speak to users in that market?
Yeah,
Okay, so like, what do you understand from that?
I figure out whether it's a valid problem or not, and I don't necessarily tend to pursue it because the idea is either too complex or, like I said, I don't have like the skills like that know how to push forward.
You mean
So-
you don't have the expertise to go ahead with your idea?
There's two things, right? There's technical expertise and there's market insight. Market insight is easier to get, right? The whole goal is why you're not seeing technical people who can solve any problem in the world. You have to decide the problem. And if you don't have enough information, go find that information, right? That should be the mindset. So if you are able to speak to 20 to 30 people in that space, you can technically become more of an expert there. That's what I did for some of my startup as well. Yeah.
But I'm saying like, there's no one from that space that's like in your team. Is that essential to have someone?
It helps. It helps because you like would have more insight. But okay, give me an example. What space is this?
Just take like trucking, shipping, logistics, for example, right?
Yes, I think there's one of the group partners, right? Harshada, she had a trucking company, and like she was like a high schooler or like college. I don't think she ever went to college. And she exited after Series C, so it's possible, right? It's whether like you are willing to like grind it out and do the hard things that other people don't want to do. Yeah, like anything is possible if you want to do it. That's the answer.
But is it more advocate? I mean, obviously
It is, right? It is. But what I'm saying is, if you think there is a need here, and if you're able to validate it, and if you're able to get them paying, then why would they give a fuck, right? Like you're good. If you're not able to, then that means either you don't have enough knowledge, or it's a network problem where you just don't have the right network and it's hard to get into. Like healthcare is really hard to get into. Law and government is really hard to get into, but once you get into it, a lot of money. So yeah. Yes.
So we've seen, I guess, projects get accepted into IC. The one-
Meaning Umesh.
Yes,
Okay.
so the one I'm thinking of is like Asian.
Asian now.
So
Okay.
this begs the question for me, is a target school?
Yeah, I think I would say 3 years ago, not so much. Actually, 2 years ago, not so much. It's getting better. I think I see many more BMS students in USC. Obviously, not like Stanford, not like Berkeley, not like actually Harvard doesn't even have it. I have not seen Harvard yet. Yeah, MIT also not so much. Actually, UMich might be very close to MIT in my opinion. It's getting better. Yeah. And they also came to Michigan, right? So that kind of helps. But it's still not like that of a feeder.
And are you a UMich?
Yes, I'm a student. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Why didn't you drop out?
Why did I drop out or why didn't I drop out?
Yes.
Okay, now we're getting into the meaty stuff. Okay, so I did drop out last semester and I was in the batch, right? I spent like basically 4 months in SF. But after working on the company after some time, I realized like the co-founders are not the right fit. So we had a split. And yeah, I came back to Michigan because I'm an international student. So there's visa stuff. I was gonna get the O1 visa, but then I left the company. So like I can't get it yet until I do a new company. But I guess this is a whole other talk as well. And I think, as I was mentioning, right, co-founder breakups are one of the main reasons companies kind of like fade out. And what I learned from this process is have a leaner company, like or leaner team. 2 to 3, if you can, 2 is better, especially with all these tools. It gets a lot easier to build, right? And know your teammates, like they should be your friends before they co-founders. I think that's the first requirement, to be honest. That's a very good way to do a company. Be very careful, by the way. It's hard to predict initially. Yeah. So I would say like even the partner told me like when you want to do a new company, like live with your co-founder for a week, you know, like really simulate what YC is. And it's not that much different. All they give you money, you can get an apartment, and that's it. We're together now. So just figure out a way to stay in the same apartment or room or whatever and lock in for a week. You will see the dirtiest sides of the other person and you will see if you can manage them and they can manage you, right? It is a relationship, like people need to realize that. So yeah, I'm back in Michigan working on something new, but hopefully something new will come soon. So yeah, it is a very interesting journey. It's like a stock market. You're like here, then you're here, but that's the process of life. So I guess I've matured a lot over this 1 year. Yeah. Yes.
If you're starting like a fresh startup and it's in the B2B sphere, how do you kind of posture yourself as credible when you're trying to get contracts from other business?
Yeah. So this is also a problem you will face even if you're in YC, because realistically your customers are not going to know what YC is. They don't know what YC is, right? What you have to do is get one customer who is like either popular or semi-popular, or like has some volume, and then when you talk to other people, you should be like, oh yeah, we're working with this guy or this company, and they're helping us build this, you know? So you create credibility off of another established company that's one of your clients. Getting that first client is really, okay, cold emailing and stuff exists, and it's hard, like the response rate is low, but you could be targeted with it, you could do cold calling, you could just show up to the office or to the place, right? Like we went to the Gusto office, we like literally showed up like some of these places. So yeah, you have to be scrappy, right? Initially you have to be scrappy. And it's like once you have that first client, that kind of helps you get other clients. because if it's a B2B space, like it's very referral based, right? So I would keep that in mind. And obviously, right, if you don't have any domain expertise, you would want to build that, right? Yeah, whether it's through your connections that already exist, asking them for feedback and going from there, that would be my first step, because just doing complete cold outbound is like pretty low chances of compliance, right? And then through that process, you will learn whether this is the right space to work in. For example, like before everything, I did something in healthcare, and I realized it's like a very difficult space to go into. And I particularly wasn't so passionate to like do that healthcare stuff and go through like such long sales cycles, right? So you gotta understand what your advantage is and why do you want to do what you want to do. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned that you did like an internship workshop for a startup
Yeah,
for your first
yeah.
company. What's your view on this? Would you recommend first-time founders first getting a job at a startup? Ideal advice, YC one, or should they just go straight ahead and start their own idea?
I think they should get experience first. Because even though there's this mindset that, oh yeah, we'll go in the deep end of the water and figure it out, right?
Yep.
Which is fine, that's fair. But by working at another high growth startup, first of all, like you're almost like a founder if it's a small team, right? So you get a lot of agency, a lot of ownership. You understand what a startup looks like. You understand how they're running their startup, what good things they did, what mistakes they made. So I think it's a really good playbook to have your company actually succeed, right? And another insight I'll give you is for YC as well. If you work at other YC companies, you can get referrals from the founders. And if it's a good company, like that really helps with the process. And that helped us as well, because one of our co-founders worked at a YC company before, and I also worked at a YC company. So that helps. And more so, it helps you understand people, right? Like if you haven't worked at all, like you don't really know people. How are you gonna manage hiring? How are you gonna manage conflicts, right? So yeah, I would suggest to do some sort of work experience. Yes.
Some of the things you were explaining was very common, like photo editing or those are like, I think like they might have figured it out long back. And how do you find that as like a niche area to get into it? And then like people from Google Photos, like who should be like the experts in that, they are finding your ideas. Yeah, this is the area we want to like that.
Yeah. So we were doing video editing, not photo editing. And the main thing was, even right now, like there's Descript, which is a big company. There's some other big companies, but the market opportunity is very big. So we also started working with sports conferences, like sports highlights, right? When the person scores a goal or something, and live highlights, and people pay a lot for it, right? So I think a mistake we make is we're too dismissive of an idea, and that leads to us not exploring something which may be a big idea or big potential space. And like, there's like a lot of examples where, even like, okay, Zepto, for example, in India, right? Like, I don't know if you know Zepto, but it's like quick delivery. There was already Zomato, Swiggy, and other companies in India, and they came late, and now they're an $8 billion company, right? They're one of the biggest companies YC has. So yeah, if they thought that this is a space which is already competitive, either there's no space for me, the opportunity wouldn't be there. So there has been like repeated events where a newcomer has been able to, do well. And yeah, I think you have to be slightly delusional as well, and have this like conviction that you know what's working, you know the right people to sell to, and as long as someone is buying a product and you're making revenue, you're on the growth stage. And if you as I said, right, if you figure out what that ICP is, and once you do figure that out, it's all about scaling and growth, which VC money helps with, right? As compared to a bootstrap startup, which has to actually generate profit from day one. Yeah, that's what I would say to that. Yes.
You mentioned before that having experience, I guess, with profitable ventures helps.
Yeah, I think more than the ventures, like the people, right? Like founders who like you look up to, or like have been through a lot. So like for me, Daniel George was the founder of TwinMind, and like he he went through a lot of different things, right? He had a PhD, he went to work at Google, he worked at JP Morgan. He was actually my mentor for a summer school, and then he left his company to create TwinMind, right? And when you are with someone of that, like, that experience, you can learn from their past experiences, because you have conversations, dinners, right? It really expands your mind of like what's possible. So you are the average of the 5 people around you, and you want to put yourself in you want to put yourself in rooms where the dumbest person. I think that's the best way to look at it. You want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Okay, but more so in the perspective of, you said, I guess, people with less ideal background,
Yeah.
specifically about like, schooling and whatnot. I guess, does the actual scope of like those previous ventures matter, or does just the idea of having been making profit off of SaaS before, is that all like still helpful to your application?
So what matters is what you did in that company. For example, for TwinMind, I joined when the app was in beta. I left when the app had 100,000 users. So grow, right? They can see that you're able to scale a product to so many users, right? They're able to see the type of work you're doing. So yes, if it's a company that's growing and you contributed to it, that helps.
What if it's not even a company? What if it's like a market or like a monetized side project or something?
Yeah. There's a question which is like, tell us about some cool projects or stuff you've built. So for sure, right? Like for me, I put my hackathon projects in there. I built this fitness app like a couple of years ago, and I put that in there. So yeah, all this stuff helps. It's just that internship is probably more valuable if it's at a decent enough company. Because see, think about who you're competing with. You're competing with X-Fan people, right? You're competing with Stanford MIT kids. Now it's probably that, but and like you get my point, right? So how will you stand out? You don't have to be there. You can work at another startup, but you should be able to like show them why you have what it takes, right? I think that's the main thing. Yes.
What do you think weighs more, a paying internship or a startup internship, or is the best both?
I think a startup internship, because I think people like don't like corporate, right? Startup people don't like corporate because it's very slow and it teaches you the wrong habits. So that is why there's more college kids and high schoolers, because they probably don't have that experience yet, or yeah, like it's more like you're not like corrupted by the corporate bullshit, and that free space of mind actually makes you more valuable than someone with 20 years of corporate experience, right? And a second thing is FANG and stuff will like really help you with the technical skills, right? It proves that you have the technical rigor, so it helps justify that. It does not help justify you being a great founder. So remember the distinctions. Any other questions? Super long. Yes.
How important do you think is to have a person for GTM?
I think engineers can learn any skill. So dedicating a whole founder just for that is a bit like if he's able to like code as well and stuff, that's useful. Depends on your market. I would probably hire that person as a founding member or something. But I think like, for example, Claude, a very interesting story. Claude is run by one guy. Marketing shit is run by one guy. And he uses Claude to like do his marketing shit. Like literally, it's one guy. So Claude, a huge company, can do their whole marketing stuff with one person doing GTM. Why do you need a GTM for like this zero revenue company, right? Interesting part. Claude is powerful. AI tools are powerful. So use AI tools to become powerful in spaces where you think you're not powerful. I just said powerful sometimes. Anyone else? That's it? Yeah, I have a lot of questions. Thank you so much, guys. Hopefully I was able to help. But yeah, another thing I want to point out is I saw some like discussion on the Discord about credits and stuff. So I just want to clarify certain things. So we told Claude to give us credits, right? And it was the Claude Builder Club. So they did not get approval from Claude to issue the credits on time, and they told us today they're not going to be able to do it. So it was something which was unexpected on our end as well. but we are giving you guys chat with the credits to all the teams, which would hopefully help you build the product, right? Yeah, I just wanted to like thank everyone for your cooperation and understanding of that. Okay, yeah.
So using the bilevel functions for just
Sorry.
that also requires API keys.
Yeah. Well, you're using some sort of like LLM, right? Like you're using OpenAI or Claude, right?
Yeah.
Through by LLM.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, I mean, like typically at hackathons, like you bring your own API key, right? But what if we provide JacHacks? Can you like confirm? Maybe I might be like not telling the right things.
So I think we are offering like API keys on need basis on Discord. There was a like form shared, I think in the announcements. Like if you really need a key,